in reflecting on the nature of liberation, usually it's from a limiting identity, that somehow we feel like we're in the tight place, and this could be like the egoic shell that we're very frightened to let go of, the thing that our identity has crystallized around. It might be our routines. A lot of us are probably going through this, if not a death and rebirth literally, then a kind of, at least for what our constructed social self has been, we now have to rethink that. That has broken down, and we have to reconstruct or rebirth a new self. And so these shells of selfhood, are kind of shown reflected in the cosmic Christ. Cosmic Christ is the cosmic form, it's really like a Hindu archetype of the, like when Krishna revealed his divine form to Arjuna on the battlefield, before going into battle, Arjuna wondered, who are you really? Reveal to me your true nature, And so Krishna shows that he's really actually the entire universe. And in that, you've got the expanded heads, you've got the visionary contact, the God contact that Arjuna needs in order to go into battle. And so, in that way, this cosmic form of Christ is a way of saying that the universe is within all of us. And within these cosmic archetypes here, Christ is the spirit that dwelleth within. And the Christ consciousness is the liberated consciousness, like Buddha mind is the enlightened mind and the liberated consciousness. And so in that way, this higher essence of the cosmic archetypal sort of personification of godhood, a formalization of that which is really transcendent and formless, but comes in to a visionary archetypal form. Here, there's kind of a cosmic sombrero, and there's the body of this cosmic Christ. Now, in these little windows, we got everything that's always going on. It's the space-time continuum, and it's the different stories that make up our lives. Because really, we're made up of our physical anatomy, but our mind is really made up of stories. So there's all these ongoing stories at all kinds of levels of history. And this is the multiplicity of being, if we really consider it, and the ongoing independent stories outside of our own head, but millions of stories, billions of stories are going on, coinciding with each other. So this is just a very simple way of pointing to that simultaneity of ongoing stories that also are part of the garment of destiny. And that's a term that Martin Luther King used to describe how we're all connected. Mm-hmm. And so that was one of the metaphors. Here, to go with the Easter theme, it's the Planetary Crucifixion. And this is this past Good Friday, was seen as, the crucifixion is seen to be Good Friday because that means that's a cause in the Christian story of our also basically liberation if we elect Jesus as our Savior. In that way, Christ becomes our ticket to heaven in that kind of doctrine. And so thematically and symbolically, that Christ becomes the touchstone to heaven. And here, there is this suffering that comes first before the resurrection. And this suffering, I think of as, we can look at it at this time. At this time in the world, I think, unlike last month, for instance, we were not all considering ourselves as one world affected by a thing, such as mortality, that unites us all. Now we have a threat, and we feel fear, but we also feel this sense of oneness. And that's part of what shows up in the crucifixion thing. We're showing up that everybody is connected, but it's a painful connection because we're destroying the planet at the same time that we're waking up to our oneness. So this is why the green child here, the Christ child, in a sense, this new green child that is aware of its interconnection with all of the plants and all of the animals. This new green identity is being nurtured, but it's part of this stressful, tight place of rebirth, that is happening right now. And so I feel like a lot of people have come alive to the necessity of saving the life web. That nature has been nurtured by our quieting down as a species. And so this we want to see. We want to see the rebirth of nature. We want to empower the web of life. And this is what the blessing is happening with all of the forces of light. And yeah.
I just wanted to tell you about a couple of the things I see that are related to liberation in this piece. And one of them is the major section up here where we're showing the liberation from gravity. We're showing the liberation up in the sky, of lifted, like things that are just levitating, floating, and UFOs and all that kind of outer space stuff. And then there's, like you were saying, you were alluding to, the liberation from the Mitzrayim. You have really shown a lot of scenes of pain and suffering and liberation and suicide and drowning and the liberation of the slavery and things like that. So there's many ways that plus I was thinking about the black hole in the top. There's a sense of the psychedelic or the releasing through in an altered state through the wormhole, black hole channel. Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of a liberating off the top chakra kind of feeling that the painting has, that the altar has. It's more than a painting, really, isn't it?
Yeah, liberating into another dimension, perhaps.
Yeah.
Now, another question I had for you guys was, there's this concept, most particularly in Tibetan Buddhism, of liberation through seeing, or more particularly, self-liberation through naked awareness, I believe the Tibetan Buddhists say. Can you speak more to this idea of liberation through seeing, through something that has the quality that just merely witnessing it causes our liberation?
Well, it's a concept that is both the seeing of an object, because they have particular objects, like the black hat of the Karmapa. Mm-hmm. it's supposedly woven with dakini hair. It's a black hat. And so just looking at it, it's said to plant a seed of liberation in the mind stream of the viewer. And as a cause for the future liberation of that person. So when we heard that as an aspiration for art, like, that's just the highest aspiration I've ever heard of, that something could be in some way implanted in somebody's mind, and that at a time when it made sense, it could resurface as, oh, now I know what that means, and that you, in a sense, was a cause. Now, it relates to their understanding of the nature of the guru or the teacher. Now, for them, the guru is really a projection of our own inner master. The spirit, the soul that dwells within, the creative spirit in all of us, and is many times not so activated in us. And so we look to the teachers outside of us to inspire this, and also to grow that quality in ourselves. And so all of these symbols, Christ, Buddha, these are symbols, external symbols of a quality of enlightened mind. That's the other element of seeing. Now, it's self-liberation through seeing with naked awareness. Now, it's seeing with naked awareness, having the enlightened mind is seeing with naked awareness. It's not putting thoughts and filters and stuff that you've pulled from your psychodramas of the past into the present moment. It's being clear as a bell. And everybody has this quality of consciousness as the instant, fresh moment. Every moment of now is an opportunity to realize that fresh, liberated quality that consciousness has inherently and purely. So the recognition of the true nature of mind and living from that perspective, that's seeing with naked awareness. And that is also quality that leads to self-liberation and has that quality of self-liberating as each moment is perceived. That's the non-dual living in both the cosmic body and within the physical form.
Yeah. Now, a technique of self-liberation through naked awareness, at least according to Timothy Leary, was the use of psychedelics. He and Richard Alpert and Ralph Metzner wrote the book, The Psychedelic Experience, based off of the ideas in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Now, what are your thoughts on the psychedelic mystical experience as a way to decondition our programming and dissolve our ego to allow this liberating enlightenment to happen?
The altered state of consciousness is a technique for liberation. And there's not really much more you need to say about it. If you've had that experience, you know how it changes you and liberates you from habits and regret and all kinds of past things that you bring with you into your everyday now. So yes, I think that it's very good.
Addiction, and a lot of people are finding liberation from addiction through the use of psychedelics.
That's right, and addiction of habits and behaviors as well. Not just other drugs, but it is very helpful for addiction. If you have a true mystical experience, it can be, catalyzing true transformation in people that really, helps their life and makes their life better. So that we know that, and psychedelic science is showing us that now.